Hey, welcome back to the Motivation for Regular People podcast. I'm so excited for today's show because I truly believe this is going to be one of the most immediately applicable podcasts that we've ever done. I certainly don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but I really feel like this podcast can meet that expectation. Before we begin, I did want to let you know some exciting news. Our podcast is now sponsored by Clear Path Leadership, which is my coaching and leadership development company. We help young, high potential leaders in the Oklahoma City area build confidence, boost productivity, and cultivate a deeper sense of purpose. Recently, I was having lunch with an old friend who is now pursuing his Master of Arts in organizational leadership. And I asked him what most stood out in his mind so far from his time in the program. And he said for him, he had learned that there is not a one size fits all approach to leadership development. It's unique for each person. I love this perspective. And to me, this is exactly why ClearPath exists. The purpose of ClearPath Leadership is to eliminate every obstacle that lies before young leaders and to illuminate the path to success for each individual person so they can achieve the highest possible level of impact and influence. To learn more about ClearPath Leadership, you can visit clearpathokc.com or you can email me at brady@bradyross.com. Pretty straightforward, but in case there's any confusion, that's BRADY@BRADYROSS.com. All right, let's get into the show. I'm going to start today by saying something that may sound depressing when you first hear it, but it's actually a very good thing, and I'm going to tell you why. Before I do that, a quick reminder that for the last several weeks, we've been in a series called It's Up to You. We've been talking about the things in life that we can control, as well as the things in life that we cannot control. More specifically, we've been talking about how we can have the right attitude about the things that we can't control in life, and how when we can achieve this sort of perspective, we are still able to experience a high degree of development and receive great value from these types of experiences. So, if you've been with us for a few weeks, what I'm about to say is not going to surprise you, but you may still not enjoy hearing it. The fact of the matter is, we cannot control everything. Initially, that doesn't sound like a good thing to most people. We love control. In many situations, we crave control. And when we don't have control, we may feel threatened. We may feel a resulting feeling of frustration or anxiety as a result of that lack of control. And just to be clear, this doesn't mean in any way that control is a bad thing. Oftentimes, control can be a very good thing, and claiming that we don't have control when we actually do can be just as dangerous as trying to overexert control. The truth about wisdom is that it often requires us to find that right balance between two opposite extremes. And this is certainly the case when it comes to pursuing and exercising control. More importantly, and this is why I bring up the fact that we can't control everything, great things can and do happen every day, both because of what we control, but also because of what we have no control over. Understanding and embracing this truth has made a huge difference in my life. I want to always be aware of how my effort and discipline and actions drive positive results, but I also want to be just as aware and in tune with how often good things happen simply because I am fortunate or blessed. So, to better understand these two concepts, I will regularly use the language of wins and gratitude. Now, forgive me for using the word gratitude in a context that's not grammatically appropriate. I guess gratitude is not intended to be used as a noun, but I've done it so often that it's been reinforced in my own memory. Please know that I come from a family of journalists, and so using proper English is something that I value, but hopefully you will forgive me for the sake of this specific exercise. So the distinction between wins and gratitudes is pretty simple. When I do something that leads to a positive result, it's a win. When something good happens to me and it has nothing to do with anything I did or anything that I chose, it's a point of gratitude. So, quick review: you do something that leads to a positive result. That's a win. something good happens to you that you couldn't control or couldn't ask for, it's worth expressing gratitude. I'd be lying if I told you that I did this every single day, but I try to do it more often than not. In fact, I am recording this episode on a Monday. And so, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read you my list of wins and gratitudes from earlier today. So, Monday, May 13th, wins. Number one, I made a solid plan for the week. I took about 2 hours yesterday afternoon, which was Sunday afternoon, to really think critically about what I needed to accomplish this week, what was coming up, what was important to prioritize. And I feel like this led to a really solid plan for the week, not just in terms of what was on my calendar, but it also some of the things that I had written out that I really wanted to give a high level of focus and attention to this week. So that was one of my wins. Win number two, extended disconnection. I've been trying to really intentionally disconnect on the weekends. And what that's turned into is on 5 p.m. Friday, I disconnect from email, from Slack, from LinkedIn, and I don't check those things again until Sunday afternoon. And you might be thinking, well, why are you on email and Slack on Sunday? Shouldn't you wait until Monday? Maybe so, but what I've found is that if I can go into the week with a clean slate, my focus Monday morning is much better. So I spent a couple hours online yesterday, but then I disconnected around 3 o'clock and didn't log back in until Monday morning. So that was win number two. Win number three, I celebrated Mary, my wife, really well, I felt, for Mother's Day. And this might be a hard one to put into the win category for some people. I know if you're anything like me, you may sometimes feel a tension about making goals or tasks around family members. What I have found is that I want to celebrate, again, the action that I take that drives a positive impact or result. And it doesn't matter if it's related to work, related to self development, or related to family and relationships. A win is a win, regardless of the domain of life that it's in for me. So I want to be just as intentional about celebrating those wins as I am with wins that are more connected with business or work. So celebrating Mary well for Mother's Day was a win. We took her to dinner. I gave her a lot of time to just chill, not have to worry about the responsibility of the kids. Got her a gift earlier in the week. Felt really good about the way that we celebrated Mary yesterday. Win number four, I started two books. I had purchased two books on Audible at the end of April, mainly as a commitment device that I would actually read them. I know that if I put money in, the motivation would be higher to follow through. Finished a book last week, took the weekend off, and then started both books this morning. Win number five, I had lunch with Israel, my pastor, and I went back to church between running a marathon, some family travel, and then having some extended family in town over the weekend. It had been a few weeks since we were able to be at church on a Sunday morning. And so having lunch with my pastor, catching up with him, and then being back at church on Sunday morning was a huge win from my perspective. So the commonality between all of those, just to reiterate, is that it was a win because I did something that directly correlated with the results. Because I set aside time on Sunday afternoon to plan my week, I had a solid plan for the days upcoming. Because I made it a point to not be on email and Slack over the weekend, I had extended disconnection. The idea here is that I am celebrating the ability that I have to make a choice to pursue an initiative that will then produce a positive result. That's what makes it a win. Gratitudes, which we're going to cover next, are different because these are things that I could not control. These are things that I could not ask for. And I want to acknowledge these things because I want to recognize how it's often a good thing that I don't have control and how often that lack of control actually works out for me in a way that is fortunate or advantageous. So I'll read you a few of these here. By the way, there's an actual, if you follow me on LinkedIn, I have an article that I posted earlier this week. It's not live yet, but it will be by the time this episode goes out. And so you can actually go on that article and you can see a picture from this entry in my journal, which is kind of fun. I'm going to try to start having more blog posts that match the podcast episodes. But if you want to really see this come to life, I would encourage you to go check that out. So gratitude number one, it just says Tana was excellent. Tana Thai is one of our favorite Thai restaurants in town. It's what Mary wanted to eat for dinner on Mother's Day. So we went to Tana Thai. We actually got takeout because they don't have their dining room open on Sunday. They only accept takeout orders. And we took it to a park nearby and we ate it outside, which was a lot of fun. Gratitude number two, David came over Thursday. David is my neighbor. He lives across the street from me. And so Thursday night, I was sitting outside getting ready to watch the Thunder game. David came over about an hour before. We got to catch up and then he watched part of the game with me. And that was just really fun to get to share that time with him. So I wanted to reflect that in my gratitudes. Gratitude number three, our ICF board is crushing it. ICF is short for International Coaching Federation. It's a group that I'm a part of. I'm on the board for our local ICF chapter, which covers Oklahoma and Arkansas. And I just really feel like our board has been going above and beyond recently to make the chapter the best that it can possibly be for our members and for the community. And that just really excites me. Gratitude number four, we've got a neighbor night planned for tonight. So, again, I mentioned earlier that David is one of my neighbors who I'm close with. We're also close with Mike and Christy, who live right next door to us. And so tonight we're going to get together. I'm going to grill some burgers and hot dogs, and we're going to get to spend some time with them, which I'm really looking forward to. Gratitude number five, I don't want to say too much about it, but it just says Mary liked new business idea. I've got an idea for another business that is percolating in my head right now. Shared it with Mary yesterday, and she had some really positive feedback and some excitement, and that was really meaningful for me. So, again, to summarize these things, I like to call out these points of gratitude as well because they force me to recognize how often it works in my favor that I cannot control everything. Because if we're honest, we tend to think about that as a bad thing. We think about lack of control and how often that harms us, how often that keeps us from getting what we want. The reality is, a lot of times when we lack control, good things happen as a result. It's not true all the time, but it's true more often than we will realize if we're not proactive about calling these things out. So, when I take time to celebrate wins and cultivate gratitude, I believe that I am reinforcing two key principles. The first principle is my daily choices matter. The things that I do on a daily basis, regardless of how big or small they may seem in the moment, they have an impact. They make a difference. And I celebrate those positive choices and decisions by acknowledging the wins that I have on a daily basis. So that's one principle. The second principle is that good things happen to me that I can't control, and I celebrate those things by expressing gratitude. I recognize that a lack of control can often be frustrating, it can feel limiting. But the reality is, many times, whether it's because of luck or simply because of circumstance, a lack of control actually works out in our favor and it produces things that benefit us and give us joy. So, as we wrap this up, let me get real with you for a second. I will admit to you that I have lived in both of these extremes before. I spent a good portion of my life thinking that I couldn't control anything, and that was not healthy for me. There have also been times in my life where I have felt maybe overly empowered to the point where I subconsciously thought that I could control everything. And this wasn't helpful for me either because it brought me to this place where when I couldn't control something, when I felt like I was giving maximum effort to something and the desired result was still not happening, it would overwhelm me. It would become frustrating. It would become almost debilitating to an extent. And so, this daily practice of celebrating wins and cultivating gratitude has been so meaningful for me. It's helped me find peace and joy in this messy middle between agency and circumstance. It's brought great perspective, and I think that it could do something similar for you as well. So, I don't always have a challenge on these podcast episodes. Maybe I should, but if I did, my challenge for you this week would be to spend time every day, even if it's just 5 minutes, celebrating wins and cultivating gratitude. Take 5 minutes at the beginning of each day and write out a few examples under each of these categories. The number's pretty arbitrary. I try to push myself to name 5 wins and 5 points of gratitude every day, but it doesn't have to be 5 for you. It could easily be more. If you wanna take time to write out 7, 8, 9, 10 under each category, you can. On the other hand, I think 3 still counts. I think even 1 under each category would count, but I wanna challenge you a little bit there because I bet that you can do more than 1. I think once you get started, these thoughts, these ideas will start to flow pretty quickly. Ultimately, I think anyone who can do this regularly will build greater contentment and appreciation for life, especially when it comes to the things that we can't control, rather than allowing a lack of control to control you in the sense that it causes concern and frustration. You can embrace this unavoidable reality as something that is actually working in your favor. Hey, thanks again for listening to the Motivation for Regular People podcast sponsored by ClearPath Leadership. It would mean the world if you would subscribe to the show if you haven't already done so. Leave us a rating and a 5-star review if you find the content helpful, and we'll talk to you soon.